Smoke Wolf Mountain Prison, Land of the Dead. During the Great Xia Dynasty, people walked along the mountain road filled with wolves. The people were prisoners, and the knight who looked after them was constantly yelling at them to do their job faster. Prisoner Yang Wu was one of the prisoners who was working on this mountain at that time. He was very exhausted and got up for a short rest. When he nevertheless decided to move, he stumbled upon an unsuccessfully lying stone, because of which he hit very hard. After that, Young hit hard and dropped the shovel from his hands, which hit him on the arm. In general, the fall was not pleasant, but that was far from all. At the same moment, he was hit on the back with a whip, and the warden began to yell at him so that he would not even think to be lazy and rest. After this blow, Yang even turned blue from pain, and the warden shouted at him so that he would not pretend that he was in pain, but continue to work. This warden was very famous in Area 68, Shu Kai Yang Smoke Wolf Prison. He looked at Yang and started yelling at him that if he didn't dig properly, he would be swept to death, and he would never see tomorrow. Yang was very angry at such treatment and thought in his head that now even the prison guard is mocking him, and how dare he mock him at all. The warden started whipping him again because Yang never got up and yelling at him because he does not understand anything, as if he had a brain like a stone. At this time, Sun Du, a skinny monkey, intervened. He began to politely say that Yang was weak and pale, and he had only arrived a couple of days ago. He simply had not yet adapted to the local conditions. Sun Dong said that it was better to leave the newcomer alone, and if the warden so wants to vent his anger, he can with it. The warden began to say that Sun would not even think that he could show off here just because he was able to withstand a couple of blows and return to work. Sun smiled, scratched his head, and said that Mr. Warden is always right. Wu thought that he had already been practicing the dragon turtle art for 5 days. His body is growing very fast. Even his hair has become noticeably longer. The warden thought because the boss told him to torture Yang Wu harder, but he did not break even after a few days of bullying. Most likely this guy has a backbone, and this is a big problem. At that moment, a guard approached the warden, who suggested that the other prisoners solve all the problems, and the master would not have to waste his time on them. The warden immediately realized that this was a really good idea and smiled. Then he ordered the guard to deal with the guy Wang Yang. After they went downstairs, the first problems immediately appeared. The warden immediately realized that this was. He asked him how he felt and handed him a stick so that he could get up faster. Yang smiled and said that he was still alive. So he said thanks for the concern. Sun Du and asked the guy if he probably pissed off the big shot because he's only been here for 3 days, and every day he is severely beaten. He has never seen anyone more unfortunate than Yang. After the guards retreated, Wu went back to the house with Xiao Man. He is severely beaten. He has never seen anyone more fortunate than Yang. After the guards retreated, Sun Du began to worry a lot about him because he looks good, but he seems to have a problem with his head. He has already become a prisoner, but he still hopes to return everything back. All this time, Yang stood still and looked very collected, as if he had not been beaten a few minutes ago. Some time ago, when Yang was just walking through the city, he was admired by all passers-by because he is only 16 years old, but he has already reached the heights of martial arts. He is very gifted at such a young age. Langsing started yelling at him, "What is he even doing here?" To which he Kai Xining replied that he should. Yang's father told him that a prince of the ruling Fu dynasty sent him a letter asking for a marriage between Yang and his daughter Tang Zhaoyang. Yang immediately objected and began to shout that he does not care about the prince's daughter. He does not like her. But the most important thing is that his heart already belongs to another girl. But the father didn't even listen. He hit the table and started yelling that this is an outrageous humiliation. The Yang family put them in an embarrassing position, and they should regret it. Yang was handcuffed, and he shouted that if they want to kill him, then let them do it. Why would they take their parents too? Only Yang himself is responsible for his actions, and his parents have nothing to do with it. His brother Yang Wen left attempts to take the post of chief for the sake of the life of his brother Yang Wu, and turned to the sovereign with a request for mercy. When the verdict was passed, Wu read that his brother left a message to the emperor, and his death sentence was cancelled. He will be sent to the Smoke Wolf Mountain prison. He will be deprived of all lands. All his martial arts will be cancelled, and now he is a prisoner of the lower class. At first, Yang Wu tried to hold back. He just quietly listened to his sentence and did not show any emotions. But then emotions took over, and he, barely holding back tears, asked for forgiveness from mom, dad, and brother. Yang Wu sat on the ground and gathered it into a fist. He remembered it all and hoped that his family would wait for him and not die. He said he plans to get out of this damn place as soon as possible. He took all his will into a fist and started screaming that he would make all the villains pay for what they did to the Yang family. Sun Du looked around to see what Wu was doing and was very surprised by his abilities. He looked at him and thought that this is the most stubborn person he knows, and if they both manage to survive here, then they will most likely be able to make friends. Wu dug with such speed and strength that the shovel even began to smoke, but at one moment he stumbled upon something and could not dig further. He was very surprised and did not understand what had happened at all, and began to dig it out faster. When he lifted the stones, he saw a dog below, which immediately began to bark and looked at him with a sweet face. Wu looked at a very cute dog and thought what to do with it. The dog was very kind and cute, barking. Yang Wu only had one thought in his mind. He hasn't eaten anything for 3 days, so this is a great chance to eat something for the first time. Wu brought the dog to him, which immediately made him drool, and he told the dog that if he did not eat soon, he would definitely die of hunger, so she would have to sacrifice herself for a great goal, become food for him. Well, suddenly the dog got some kind of nut. It was of a strange color and glowed all over. Wu took the nut in his hands, and it was quite heavy. Yang Wu suggested that this nut has unusual properties. Then he hid nut in his jacket and looked at the dog. He told her that he would accept this nut and let the dog go. He winked and said that he would never have eaten such a cute dog anyway. After a couple of seconds, strange things began to happen. The nut began to warm his body, and a little more energy was restored, and Wu began to feel much better. Wu then continued to dig. After a couple of minutes, he was able to find a gem. It was a very useful find for him. Wu knew that it was hematite, and this stone could lure him out for some food, and this is exactly what he needs right now. However, at that very moment, the girl stepped on a stone and said that she was very lucky that she found hematite right under her feet. Wu immediately became serious. He turned to the girl and asked she. This woman picked up a stone and assumed that Wu was new here, since he didn't know her name. This woman's name was Wang Yang, and she was on call 6-8, and she was the mistress of the 2 strongest inmates. Yang Wu tensed up and started yelling at her that he doesn't care who she is. She just needs to give the stone back. At the same moment, Su Song, who was a subordinate of Wang Yang, pointed at Wu with his finger and began to shout that he should watch his tongue. And Wang Yang is a real flower among the weeds of the 68th zone. If he insults her again, yours will definitely not be good. Shi Dan, who was also a subordinate of Wang, also joined him. He began to shout that you shouldn't be good-natured with this impudent one. You need to teach her a lesson so that he remembers who is in charge, named 68. But Wang ordered them both to be quiet, because she wanted to say a few words to this young man. Wu immediately assumed a fighting stance and told this fat woman that she was annoying him. If she did not return the stone immediately, then he would not hold back. Wang said that it would be easy to return the stone. He just needs to spend 1 night with her, and in return she will find another person who will look for the stone in his place. Wu did not tolerate this and attacked her with a shovel, shouting that he would rather die than make deals with her. But Wang was no ordinary woman, but rather easily grabbed Wu and moved the stone away from him. Ku Song and Shi Dan immediately blushed. They were both jealous of Wu because he was able to touch their mistress. Wang began to choke him, didn't scream that she didn't want him to die here. She wants to help him. But Wu was adamant. He screamed that she let go. Then Wang told him to listen to her. They could live here in Area 68 like gods. If only he agreed. Wu, in a panic, began to come up with a plan. This Wang is unusually strong, and after 3 days of hunger he cannot fight back. He has been doing martial arts for so many years that now he is ashamed to realize that he is humiliated by some woman. But soon, a dog appeared in time, which stole the stone from Wang's hands and started to run away. Wang herself did not expect this and started screaming for Su Song and Xie Dan to catch her and return the stone. After that, both Wang's subordinates went in pursuit, but their speed did not allow them to catch up with the dog. Wu, after such a suffocating technique, could not stand up normally. And besides, this woman stank very strongly. He became very disgusted. Before he had time to rest, Wang took him by the shoulder and began to tell him to think about her proposal. If he does not agree, then she will make sure that Wu will never be able to find more than a single hematite. Even if he finds it, it's all the same, don't blame him for the food. After that, she started to leave and scream that her 2 subordinates are simply useless. They cannot even catch a dog. When she was far enough away, Wu slammed his fist on the ground and started screaming that he was just furious. Sun Du approached him and said that he shouldn't be so worried, and in fact he is jealous of Wu. Yang Wu looked askance at him and said, what is there to envy here? Song Dong began to say that Wang is really not very beautiful, but it would be good to take care of her, and he would like to hug her, and he is ready to give his life for this. Wu could not stand such words. He began to feel sick from such. Song Dong blushed and said that Wu just doesn't understand that after years in prison, even a pig looks attractive. After that, Wu became very sad and began to cry, because he decided that he needed to get out as quickly as possible. Song Dong began to say that it was theoretically easy to leave the mountain prison, but no one knows how many of the 1,000 prisoners actually escaped. This made Wu think, because according to the rules of the Smoke Wolf prison, only prisoners who turned in 50 tons of hematite can get permission and appeal the sentence. Wu began to think his Danshan had already been destroyed, and now he can't even fight a woman, and how long it would take him to get 50 tons. But at that moment, to his surprise, the dog came back, and in her teeth was the same hematite stone. Yang Wu understood the dog and began to say that she is very cute. From now on she should follow him, because as long as Wu does not die, the dog will not starve to death either. Wu suggested naming her Xiao Hai because of the coloring. Song Dong said that this dog is really quite smart and understands a lot about human nature. After that, Wu and Song Dong made a decision to keep digging, because if they stop now, they won't be able to feed Xiao. The whole day passed at this pace, and the sun was already setting. The working day was over. Wu started explaining to the dog that they had only mined 1 large hematite all day and were able to trade it for all the food they currently had. But this food was just terrible. Wu could hardly contain himself. The smell from this food was just disgusting. And even at this moment, a strong blow flew to his back, which made a bad dinner even worse. Wu fell on the ground, overturned a plate of food. His t-shirt was already torn on his back at the sight of impact. Yang Wu began to say that he had not eaten anything for several days. When he had food, they dared to disturb him. Ku Song started yelling with a smirk that the food was from the exchange stone they stole from Wang, and if they didn't obey Wang, they would starve to death. Yang Wu did not endure it. He quickly jumped up and attacked Su Song with all his anger. He easily dodged the blow because Wu was very weak by this time, and then Ku Song said that now he would show how strong a real man is. After that, Ku Song hit Wu on the shoulder with all his strength. This blow was very painful. Wu began to support his hand because the bone in his hand broke, and he could no longer move it properly. Su Song stood and laughed. For him it was just a game, and he could mock him as he liked. He then threw Wu to the ground and yelled that he was just trash, with just a pretty face. Wu lay on the ground and couldn't move. His arm was broken, and he hadn't eaten in days. Su Song stood and said that if Wang did not like Wu's appearance, he would already be dead, so he needs to find Wang today, or prepare for death tomorrow. The other prisoners did not understand why Wu did not want to come to Wang himself. Everyone dreamed of being with her, Immediately it became easier to live in prison. And this guy simply did not understand anything about respect. He deserved all these beatings. But Wu was not going to give up. In his head, he only had thoughts that he needed to get up as quickly as possible. By this time, Sung Dong had already arrived and helped him up. He asked how Wu was feeling. Sung Dong said that Wu should sit down because he was going to share half of the portion. Yang Wu began to say that it was useless. If he did now, yours would be beaten too. But Sung Dong only smiled. He said that it doesn't matter. He knows he looks very thin. But in fact, he can withstand serious beatings, so he has nothing to be afraid of. Wu turned to him and said with a smile that from now on he can call him brother, because not everyone is capable of that. After that, Sung Dong began to collect the remains from the ground and suggested that Wu also try. Wu replied that it was too dirty. Then Sung Dong smiled and said that he would eat everything himself. And if he did not survive, then how would they be able to eject from here? Wu grabbed a piece of bread and thought, because Sun is right, if he can't survive, but never get out of here. Sung Dong smiled and watched Wu having lunch. If they have food, you should definitely eat it. So the night fell. They were disgusting buns, but after several days of hunger, they did not look so bad. At night, Wu lay on the ground and thought that all this is somehow strange. He feels like a walnut in his stomach releases magical powers. It makes his body feel better and better. He understood that Xiao Hai, who brought him this nut, is a real treasure. So Wu suggested that if he eats this nut, it will heal all his wounds. By this time, Xiao was already sitting next to Wu. If the walnut is really so strong that the dog would eat it by itself, Wu thought so and decided to go to sleep. In a dream, Wu said that his Yang family had been loyal for generations, but we were still left noble at the end. If he manages to get out of here, he will definitely return the glory to his family. But his dantian was cancelled. All his martial arts were lost. At this time, the dog took a walnut in his teeth and began to walk straight towards Wu. Then she put the nut right in his mouth so that he could eat it himself. The next morning, Wu was back at work and digging as hard as he could. And surprisingly, he had a lot of strength. He worked very fast and did not understand why he had so much strength and how he managed not to get tired for such a long time. At this time, an incomprehensible energy reaction began in his stomach. Forces began to fill him. Wu already looked more cheerful. The Kai energy spread to my body. He again began to feel like a warrior. The boundaries of his capabilities began to expand again. Wu decided that he needed to work as hard as possible in the mines. This would help increase his strength. Now he is just a beginner warrior. But if he continues to try hard, he will definitely have the opportunity to get out of this terrible place. Sung Dong began to worry, because yesterday he had a broken arm, and today he is already working with might and main in the mine. Problems with his hands cannot begin. Wu smiled and replied that for unknown reasons, he seemed to be born again, and promised that he would get out of here soon. Sung Dong began to laugh, and said that Wu seems to be immortal, did not ask when the time comes, not to forget about him too. Yang Wu smiled, and said that they are now brothers, and therefore they will walk together. He added that he had one idea. He offered to become the bosses of the 68th Division. Sung Dong immediately jumped back and became nervous. He nervously said that there was no need to scare him. Otherwise, he shouldn't even joke. But Wu was serious and said that if they do not become the main ones, then I will get enough hematite. In prison, the most important force. If their blows are strong enough, then people will listen to them. Sung Dong immediately objected because his fists never had power. He's just an ordinary guy with no superpowers. But Wu said that he would teach him to reveal his strength and his Kai energy. This would allow him to become a real warrior. Sung Dong was a little inspired and said that even minimal knowledge in military affairs is incredibly valuable. So military families never need anything. Wu appreciated his desire and put his hand on his shoulder and began to tell that such knowledge is passed down from generation to generation in the Yang family, and they share such knowledge. Well, if you don't take it now, then there's nothing to hide. The same day they went to train. They hid behind a small mountain so that no one could find them. Wu explains some of the features of Kai energy and how to control it, while Sungdong listened carefully and memorized all the information. Then he bowed and said that he did not expect such kindness from the prisoner, and now he does not know how to thank. Wu got excited and started yelling that they need to train more to get out of here. Outside there is a huge world waiting for them. Sungdong understood this, so he was ready to train. And so their day went. At the end of the day, Wu walked cheerfully and shouted that he managed to dig up a huge piece of hematite, which are clearly more than 25 kilograms, so they won't be able to eat meat. Sungdong also boasted that he found a piece of about 10 kilograms and also said that breathing exercises helped him in his work in the mine, and he seemed to have added strength. While they were going to turn in the stones, Wu noticed that Sungdong was able to progress quickly. Most likely he had talent. But not everything was so smooth. There were 3 men in front, and one of them was Tu, who began to say that Yang Wu never came to Ms. Wang, and therefore now a lesson can be taught. Sungdong did not lose his strength on his knees with his stone. He asked no one to quarrel, but simply give the stones specifically for them to quickly settle everything. Su laughed and said that Sungdong knows how to behave, not like his friend Wu, but it's still not enough. Wu will have to go with him to Lady Wang, and in a bad case, you will have to break your arms. Yang Wu listened to all this and was very aggressive. He could not forgive such audacity in his address. He collected his thoughts and said that in vain they are trying to threaten them. No one is going to give up. After that, Su came close and grabbed Wu by the throat. This annoyed him greatly. He considered Wu usually garbage, and it didn't fit in his head how he dares to answer him something. A second later, Su snatched the stone from Wu's hands. It was so fast that Wu didn't have time to react. After that, Su smirked and said that Wu would still not be able to do anything to them, so they would take all the stones. Then he turned around and ordered them to come with them, because Ms. Wang has been waiting for a long time. Wu's nose was incredibly angry. Wu started yelling about how he was not going to go with him and even see this woman. After that, Wu hit Su between his legs with all his strength. From such a blow he was twisted, and he began to yell in pain. His eyes immediately turned red, tears came, and there were strong screams. It was the biggest pain in his life. When he was able to recover a little, he yelled at the other 2 prisoners to destroy Yang Wu as soon as possible. Su was the first to fly into battle. He wanted to take revenge on Wu, but what pain he caused. But this time, Wu was stronger and knocked out Su with one blow, which he certainly did not expect. Wu stepped on him with his foot and looked in the direction of the other 2 prisoners, making it clear that they definitely would not be sitting. They both got scared and looked at him with a frightened look. They already imagined what would happen now. After that, Wu walked closer to them and laughed, and the 2 began to tremble in fear. Wu then pushed their foreheads together, which caused them great pain. Wu began to stretch his hands and told them that they were too weak to tell him. Wu then took his shovels and began to approach Su, who was lying on the ground and unable to move. Wu calmly approached him and said how such weaklings dare run into him and take away his stones. Su shouted, not understanding that his arm must be broken. How can he even move it? Wu then hit him a second time and told him that he should understand one thing. He is immortal, and his body is not broken. After that, even Sungdong came up and started beating to practice his punching skills. Wu turned to Sungdong and said that it was time to eat meat. Sungdong held his huge stone and laughed, but at first he was so happy. And so the night came. In the cave where Wu and Sungdong were, a fire burned to keep them warm, and also to cook food. Sungdong cried with happiness. He held the meat in his hands and said that it was bitter, but nevertheless incredibly tasty. Wu, in turn, did not forget about the dog. He understood that it was she who brought a large share of the victory, so he also decided to feed her. However, to his surprise, the dog did not take the meat, which was very strange, given that we have a dog. Wu didn't know how to talk to her, so he said that if she didn't eat, he would eat everything himself, but the dog didn't seem to care. She wagged her tail and started to leave the cave. Sungdong smiled and said that Xiao Hai's food cravings are nothing like the taste of an ordinary little dog. Wu agreed because this is an unusual dog. He will definitely help them get out of this cage. At this time, where Ms. Wang lived, there were screams throughout the house. She could not believe that 3 healthy men could not defeat one boy. They themselves were uneasy. While Wang was sitting, she was being massaged, and she said that she was not mistaken about this boy, since he was able to defeat Su. But he is not so weak. After that, Wang turned to Shidan and said that tomorrow he must bring Yang Wu here, and no matter how he does it. Shidan asked him to complete this mission on his own, to which Wang replied that he was nothing more than a toothpick, and he better take someone else on the team. Shidan started to leave and thought that the mistress humiliates him so much, so he must definitely grab this boy, and then the mistress will understand how cool he really is. So the night passed. The next day came. The sky that day was just wonderful. Wu did morning meditation and dispersed the Kai energy throughout the body. Wu began to gather energy. It was as if he was surrounded by countries with a force that enveloped him and protected. To use the 9th secret, you need to learn how to control 9 different types of dark energy, and the best time to concentrate dark energy is dawn. This is the earliest morning, during which time he was able to concentrate a little purple key. Well, even now his strength has grown a lot. After that, Wu made a fist and asked all the family to wait for him. He planned to return honor to the Yang family. It was already noon. Sung Dong was working in the mine as usual and did not take time off, when suddenly something crunched in his body. He immediately started crying and went to Wu to talk about it, that he heard a strange sound from his body. Wu took his shoulder and said that he also heard it. Now he can be congratulated. He comprehended the initial level of martial arts and became a warrior. But there is no need to relax, because there is still a lot of work ahead. But at the same moment, Shidan and his company stood right in front and told Wu that Ms. Wang really wanted to meet him. Sung Dong and Wu are a little tense because those Wang puppets have come again, and it is not clear what they want this time. Shidan waved his hand and told them to quickly approach them. Otherwise, they would have to use force. However, at the same time, there were still people on the other side who ordered them both to stand still. They were prisoners from the Hixing gang, and the leader began to tell Wu and Sung Dong to give them half of their stones, after which they could join the Hixing gang, who would provide them with protection. Sung Dong began to whisper that there are 2 large groups in the 68th Division. One of them is the Yang Wang Fat Gang, and the second is the Hixing Gang Centipedes. These people who came to them are K-Wei's servants. Then Wu began to understand what was happening. Wu smiled and said that they only found 1 small hematite, so he and his brother had better give them the whole stone. The leader reached for the stone and said that this was the right choice, and the guy was really good. He definitely had a future. Shidan began to shout that they were completely crazy. This kid already belongs to Mrs. Wang, and they decided to lure him away. Chi Wei approached the big man and told him that these guys gave them their prey, which means they are now people of the Hixing gang, and it's better for them not to pester them now. After that, Shidan finally lost his temper and shouted to his team that they should grab the kid at any cost and send it to Mrs. Wang. He started yelling that Shidan had just declared war on the Hixing gang, and now he would have to cut off his head. After that, people from the Hixing gang started screaming at Shidan and his team. They started a real massacre, in which there was no clear favorite yet. Sung Dong was very worried and told Wu that they better get the hell out of here. But Wu turned around and with a smile on his face, said that he was also a warrior now, and warriors should not be nervous in such situations. Wu pointed his finger at this massacre and said that Sung Dong should look carefully, because the panda could be him, and you need to believe in your victory. Sung Dong replied that he did not quite understand how to fight properly, but judging by his strength, he would be able to deal with everyone except Kai Wei and Shidan. Yang Wu said that these are the right thoughts, and he is already at the first stage of the elementary level. The natural Kai energy is much stronger than the brute force of the prisoners. Kai Wei and Shidan are about the 3rd or 4th stage of elementary training. They are not much stronger. Wu looked at the fight and said Strength is measured not only in the amount of Kai energy. Concentration is also very important. These guys with concentration are definitely bad, so they are not too weak. These words about weakness were heard by Kai Wei and Shaidan. They immediately turned around and became very aggressive. Shaidan said that this kid just provoked them into a fight, and it would be better to grab him first. Kai Wei agreed. He said that he should show him who to be afraid of. Wu showed with all his appearance that he was not afraid, so he asked for 2 misfortunes at once, because he did not want to be late for lunch. Shaidan and Kai Wei could not stand such impudence. They immediately ran into battle and started shouting at him and insulting him. Wu started spinning his shovel in the air and warming up for the upcoming battle. Then he transferred the Kai energy into his shovel and shouted that today, thanks to them, he would at least be able to warm up. After that, Wu called his technique the first assault strike and landed his strike on these 2 big men. Thanks to such a powerful attack, he was able to move forward and throw them both in different directions. Chi Wei flew away screaming and hit the ground. The same thing happened to Shaidan, and he hit a stone. They both lay on the ground, and they became incredibly scared. They did not expect such strength. But Wu only laughed at them, and when he swung his shovel, he heard screams for mercy. It was already too late. These 2 lay beaten and shouted that they were giving up. They could no longer oppose. Wu did not finish them off. He just stuck a shovel in the ground and began to taunt them. But then the guard came from the mountain. He began to shout and find out what was happening here. Then Sung Dong and Wu started to run away. They decided to leave everyone here just to go out for lunch. So another night came. In one of the caves of the 68th, Wu and Sung Dong's squad stopped for the night. Wu sat happy because today was a great day before him. They put those fools in their place, and now they also ate delicious food. But suddenly Wu noticed that the dog has something in its mouth, and apparently she wants to give it to him. When Wu took a closer look, he saw that it is ginseng, one of the most expensive medicinal plants. It strengthens the bones of the body and also improves blood circulation. When Wu finally took the root of this plant, he was a little upset because Xiao Hai had already eaten half. The dogs didn't like it very much. He still brought the root of a valuable plant, but he still doesn't like something. After that, Wu still decided to eat it. Thanks to the ginseng, his body will recover even faster, and he will regain his former strength. As soon as he ate the root of the plant, he immediately felt his body overflowing with Tai energy. It seemed to crawl out of him. After that, the inside of his body began to heal faster, and strange sounds appeared. Wu exclaimed because there was a triple sound, which meant that he was at the 4th degree of the elementary level, and once it reaches the 7th degree, you will reach the intermediate level. Wu was very happy. His body was overflowing with energy, and he himself was once again convinced that the practice of the 9th secret was incredibly useful. The blood flow improved a lot. His whole body began to receive a lot of nutrients. From this, he even turned red. At that moment, he became very embarrassed. He began to feel that the blood had gone somewhere wrong. After that, Wu called his brother over and said that he had a conversation. Wu enthusiastically began to say that it was time to go to Wang and deal with all the problems. Sung Dong noticed something strange and started yelling that Wu couldn't control himself at all. And did he really decide to make such a sacrifice? But Wu also started yelling that it had nothing to do with me. I'm not going there to kill Wang. Wu understood that if you need to catch bandits, you need to start with the leader. And if they want to become the main, then you need to start right now. At this time, Wang, as usual, found her house. It was deep night in the yard, and the time was late. Wang thought about everything that happened today, and she was shocked that Wu turned out to be so strong and was able to deal with Zhu Gan and Shaidan. Wang was very excited because tomorrow she will have to see Wu herself, because he did not come to her and she is running out of patience. When suddenly she heard that her name was, she immediately ran to the door and began to say that Wu finally decided to come to her. He realized that he liked her. Wu and Sung Dong were determined. Wu said that if she obeyed them, then her life would be spared. Wang has already begun to imagine how Wu wants to take possession of her. She is madly in love when he is rough with her. When the guys heard this, they immediately became ill. They could not stand being with her for a long time. Wang did not wait and was the first to hug Wu. She could no longer hold back. Wang hugged him and said that now she would show him true love. Wu began to get nervous. He was incredibly sick of it. Sung Dong jumped at her from a shovel and started yelling at her to back off. He can't let his brother be treated like that. Wang did not break his opinion and began to yell at him in response so that he would not even dare to approach and interfere with her. Otherwise, we would say goodbye to life. But Sung Dong had no intention of retreating, however, at the last second. His hand still trembled, and he was unable to deliver this blow. After that, Wu began to scream that now she would be finished. Wu hit her with his elbow with all his strength. It was a serious blow from which she flew off a little, but she did not receive significant damage. Wang held her cheek and said that Wu is a bad boy. I am now Wang's sister to teach him manners. She jumped at him to use the highest level martial art technique, fist that break rocks. Wu Peridou thought for nothing, because this is an ordinary high level. There is nothing special about it. She needs to show real power. Wu flew into battle using the art of the ninth secret. This is a special strike, and also very fast. This blow hit right in the nose, and most importantly, Wan was immobilized, and she could not finish her attack. From such a sharp blow, Wang immediately flew off. Wang lay on the ground and said that she was at the 8th stage of the intermediate level of martial arts. 2 days ago, she easily beat him. How is it possible that now he is so much stronger than her? Wu was calm and replied that she did not understand too much, and now he just needs to win. After that, Wu used the first dark cloud assault strike, which knocked back Wang even more. Wu then used a second assault strike that pierces the wind, completely disarming Wang. Those 2 hits were enough to send Wang flying off and unable to fight again. While she was flying, she had time to think that Wu had become too strong. He definitely has the highest level of martial arts. Well, such screams came running Wang's subordinates, who could not believe what was happening. They were completely defeated and wanted to somehow help their mistress. At this time, Wu was already dragging Wang with him and calmly explained to everyone that he had already defeated her, and now he would be the boss. Shi Dan turned to his partner. Yang Wu was really able to defeat Lady Wang, and what should they do now? They were completely confused. Wu decided to hurry them up. He began to shout at them with aggression, and if they don't like something, then they can fight him right now. Ku Song and Shi Dan immediately understood everything and knelt down to greet the new boss. All the bandits who used to obey Wang are now on their knees and shouting that they welcome the new boss. Wu began to shout back that from now on they obey 2 people, him and Sung Dong. Then no one will touch them. Sung Dong was a little at a loss. He scratched his head and didn't understand because he didn't do anything about it. After that, Wu ordered to move Wang away so that no one else would see her. Ku Song and Shi Dan were very upset, but they had no choice and began to do it. As soon as Wang was finished, Wu began to tell Sung Dong that there was still a gang of centipedes left, and while the gang is not ready, they have an advantage. They need to attack them as quickly as possible. Wu said with a serious face that the 68th section would be under their control tonight. At this time, in the chambers of the salamanders, everyone was laughing and screaming. This could only mean that the boss was just there. The second boss was sitting in the house among the prisoners of the 68th Department of the Centipede, and he mocked Xiao Man. He said that this girl who pretends to be a boy. Xiao Man was sitting in the corner all beat up. He said that he was really a guy and begged to let him go. But the boss was adamant. He had already tuned in and said that he was going to check for himself who he was, a guy or a girl. Xiao Man began to cry and covered himself with his hands. He said that it is better to die than to talk to him. The boss laughed so much, he already approached the boy. But outside the house someone started screaming and blows were heard. When the boss had already grabbed Xiao Man, the screams outside were too loud. It was no longer possible to ignore them. When the boss decided to take his shovel and went to see what was happening on the street, who was bothering him. When he went out into the street, the first thing he saw was the beaten guards who could not move. The boss started yelling for whoever did this to get out as quickly as possible, and answered for beating the guards. At this time, Sung-dong attacked him from behind with a shovel. He shouted that his reign would now end, but the boss was not as weak as his guards. He immediately reacted and was ready to fight. For him, Sung-dong was not a serious opponent, so the bosses needed only one hit. From this blow, Sung-dong flew off and severely injured his hand. In flight, he held his hand and screamed in pain. When he did land, he couldn't feel his hand at all. He had to admit the boss was really strong. The boss started yelling that he was from the main Haishim gang and had an intermediate level of martial arts level 9, and some bandit decided to attack him alone. Sung-dong began to cover himself with his hand. He was really scared. But at that moment, Wu ordered the boss to stop. Wu was already behind him and began to use the third assault strike to deal with him. But the boss just grinned and said that now he will show his power to the violators. It was too late, so Wu managed to strike. The boss fell to the ground with a serious wound. The boss lay on the ground and aggressively said that it was simply because he attacked on the sly. He could not do anything. But Wu smiled and said that they are all criminals here, and you can forget about honor in Bayes with a criminal. Wu calmed down and told the boss that everything he owned would now belong to Yang Wu. Xiao Man was crying in the house at that time. He heard Wu shouting to the centipede that he was finished and heard the cries of the boss himself about pardon. But when the screams stopped, Xiao Man was very surprised, but he did not know what to expect and where the centipede had gone. Xiao Man decided to look out the window and check the situation around. And there he noticed a strange picture. Wu held a centipede and shouted that he is now the new boss. If there are those who disagree, then they can now give him a fight. This time again, all the criminals knelt down and greeted the new boss. No one dared to oppose Wu. Wu threw off the body of the centipede and told all the prisoners to go and warn everyone that Wu is now the new boss. If someone disagrees, you are waiting for him the same as the centipede. Xiao Man could not believe his eyes. For him, it was a miracle and salvation from a ruthless boss who always mocks him. Wu turned to Sung-dong and told him that from now on they will live here. All Wang Hematites and Scolopendras will belong to them. Sung-dong bowed to him and said that he would faithfully follow Mr. Wu. But Wu only smiled and said that there was no need to be so official. They are still brothers, and those who are kind to Wu receive the same kindness from him. But Sung-dong was adamant. He began to beat on the chest and said that now Wu is the real boss. If someone wants to take his life, they will first deal with him. After that, they shook hands in a friendly way and decided that they would move on together. While they were talking, Xiao Man came out of the door and bowed. She thanked for the rescue and asked to take the little girl as their assistant and maid. Wu and Sung-dong couldn't believe it. They didn't know that there were other girls here, especially such small ones. She began to tell what was a servant. But due to the fact that a crime happened in the palace where she worked, she was sent here as a prisoner. And in order to protect herself, she pretended to be a boy. But now the Scolopendra almost ruined her life. Wu began to enter the house and told her to relax now, because her fate is somewhat similar to Wu's, so he will protect her. Xiao Man began to cry with joy. Well, she sincerely thanked the master for saving her life. However, Wu did not fully believe that this girl, because she was no different from all the guys, and could pretend to be a girl in order to get protection. Xiao Man showed that they use bandages so that no one can understand that she is a girl. Wu blushed a lot. He didn't know how to react to this, so he froze in a stupor, and after that he abruptly turned away and said that he did not need to prove anything, and he realized that she was a girl. The next day came. Wang and the centipede came to the warden to tell what had happened. When the warden saw the condition of these bandits, he immediately realized that it was Yang Wu's fault. Wang began to say that this kid lowered them right in front of everyone, and they need to be finished as soon as possible. Centipede also said that Wu had already fixed all the criminals and called himself the new boss of the 68th Division. Then the warden thought. At the very beginning, they decided that it was better to leave her alive. So they didn't kill her, but no one could imagine that he would gain strength so quickly, and since he had already defeated the prisoners themselves, it was worth asking to deal with this prison authorities. The warden began to walk in circles because, unfortunately, the director, we are not here now, because something serious happened in the 8th Department. At this time, a serious fire broke out in the 8th Department when all the most experienced people from the prison urgently went to. Assistant Director Zhao reported the situation to the chief. The prisoner of the 8th Division dug out a deep abyss and released an evil bloody demon, and he was able to absorb hundreds of prisoners in a second. Another assistant, Lai Feng, said that according to his rumors, many ancient artifacts were buried in the territory of the prison, and perhaps a very serious secret was hidden here. Third Assistant Wang Tinlong said that the blood demon has soared rapidly into the sky, and it is extremely dangerous. The 8th section should be immediately blocked. No one should leave their section now. Wang Tinlong looked down and said that there must be incredible danger waiting there. We must be extremely careful. All three stood on a cliff. In depth it was incredibly large, and at the very bottom there was a demon who was tightly chained to the ground. But he was not sad, just the opposite. The demon sat and laughed, and then he turned up and started yelling for those who are not afraid to die to come to him. At this time, Sung Dong and Wu rested in the shade and ate their lunch. They still did not suspect anything. However, after a second, Wu noticed some strange energy. He could not understand what it was, but he felt it for the first time. Sung Dong asked him what happened, but Wu himself did not really know. He could not explain what exactly happened. Wu said that he seemed to have sensed a whole energy, and now you need to be more careful. Right behind them appeared the hand of an incomprehensible monster. Wu and Sung Dong immediately turned around and were shocked. They hadn't seen anything like this in a long time. This was a man who was very ill, and he begged them to give him food, because he did not want to become a ghost who died of hunger. Sung Dong was all on his nerves. He was very frightened by this man, and it seemed to me that it was perfume. But to his happiness, it was an ordinary person. This poor fellow began to say that in exchange he would offer something valuable, the main thing he needed to eat now. Then the man took out his eyeball and said he would trade it for some food. Sung Dong felt bad like that. It was just disgusting. But Wu reacted quite normally. He leaned over to this poor fellow and offered him rice and said that he was ready to exchange for this. The old man began to tremble violently, began to thank the strangers who nevertheless decided to save him. But after that, he fell exhausted and could not even keep that eye. Wu took a pulse, but the old man had already died. He stopped breathing and could no longer taste rice. Wu bowed down before him and felt very sorry for him. Wu offered to bury him somewhere here. Sung Dong grabbed Wu's hand and told him what he needed this eye for. It's just disgusting. But Wu said that this eye is not real. Wu began to explain that this is a ball with a seal. A huge secret must be sealed inside the ball. Wu, in a hopeless situation, began to turn his head. It is very difficult to create a ball with a seal, but it is even more difficult to understand this seal. Now he has too little strength, so there is no way for them to open the seal. It was at this time that Xiao Hai ran up and began to look at the ball. Wu was very surprised to see a dog here. Wu was very frightened and began to shout that it was not edible and the dogs needed to leave as soon as possible. But Xiao Hai was not going to eat the ball. He began to breathe fire for him. From this, Wu and Sung Dong were simply shocked. Wu wondered if this dog was full of spiritual energy. He must be a mystical beast. By this time, Xiao Hai had already used up all his strength. The flame was getting smaller, but the sphere did not submit to him. Xiao Hai tuned in his energy and passed out. Wu smiled and praised the dog. After that, he took this sphere in his hand and felt how huge energy emanates from it. How huge energy emanates from it. Wu held the sphere in his hand and bit the other hand. He began to remember how to properly activate the seals. To open the seal, you need to immediately drip blood. Only the owners of blood are able to learn the secrets of the ball with the seal. After a drop of blood hit the ball, it immediately began to glow even brighter, and the energy went out in all directions. But then, a beam of energy found the owner of the blood, so all the energy of the sphere rushed straight to Wu's forehead. The sphere showed him a huge water dragon. Wu himself was a small ant compared to him. After his vision, he jumped up abruptly. It was exciting and dangerous. Wu still came to his senses for a while. Sung Dong held Xiao Hai in his arms. I asked my brother what he saw because he looked very scared. Wu was sweating all over. He said that he saw a turtle dragon somewhere in the sea, and it was a huge monster. So the knight fell among the rocks, built a house for Yang Wu, where he spent time. Wu meditated and tried to master the powers of the dragon. His entire body was covered with blue Kai energy. He understood that he must draw water from the ground with his feet and revive the turtle dragon inside his body. Only in this way he could master this power. This gave him a new skill, Dragon Turtle Water Pillar. So far he had no idea how strong or weak this technique was. Wu was sweating. His triple snap happened again. It can only mean that he is at the 10th stage of the intermediate level of martial arts, and his body, thanks to the practice of the 9th secret art of the sea dragon turtle, is gaining strength incredibly quickly. This greatly encouraged him, because now he can be sure that he will leave this prison. 5 days have passed. In the 8th section of the mountain prison, where the same demon was located, strange things began to happen. The man called Old Man Lai because he sat in the toilet for too long. The man began to think that he fell through the cesspool. Well, screams were heard from the toilet, so that he would not dare to come here. The man began to shout that he would not leave him in trouble. If Old Man Lai is still alive, then he must be urgently helped. When he got closer to the toilet, you saw a demon inside that was eating Old Man Li. Li, with the last of his strength, told him to run as soon as possible, because there was no help for him. The man fell to the ground from fright. He had never seen demon wolves. He froze in a stupor and could not move. Demon wolves attacked the prison. There was a whole pack of them, and they were all heading towards the prisoners. There was also a leader among them. He looked a little different, but it was he who directed all the wolves to the right place. Under his command, the demon wolves went straight to the place where the prisoners were to destroy them. These were unequal battles. The wolves were much stronger and more agile than people. Even with weapons, people could not fight back. The wolves easily dealt with the prisoners. They had no chance of winning. The leader began to lick his lips and shouted that the wolves would exterminate the entire human race, and then all their treasures would belong to the wolves. But at this moment, the energy-charged arrow flew straight into the wolf leader. He managed to jump away, and he was very lucky in this, because the arrow easily destroyed the stone on which he was standing. The ringleader was very surprised. He did not expect the prison authorities to arrive so soon. He shot from the assistance of the head of the prison. He looked at the leader of the wolves and said that he only had a few thousand wolves, and this task was for several minutes. Lan Kai began to shout that if he decided to attack the prison with such a small army, then he did not have everything at home. The leader of the wolves began to get nervous. He knew that the leader's name was Lan Kai, and he had already learned his smell a long time ago. He must immediately clear the path and try not to die. Lan Kai at that time yelled that the wolves attacked them without fairness, so they will not be spared. The wolf leader started shouting to his army for the demons to bring him all these people. Lan Kai also started yelling for people to get ready to attack the wolves. Thus began the battle in the 8th division. It was a difficult battle, where it was not possible to identify the winner soon. At this time, in the house where Yang Wu lived, everything was calm. He trained as usual. By the 5th day of training, but still standing in a pose and meditating, a lot of water had already gathered around him. Wu thought that he had already been practicing the dragon turtle art for 5 days. His body is growing very fast. Even his hair has become noticeably longer. He has already reached the 16th stage. It can be considered that he has reached the top of the skill of a warrior. Each martial art has 9 ranks. Each rank has 4 levels. Based on the fact that he is at the highest rank of a warrior and mastering the technique of the 9th Dragon Turtle Secret Technique, he will surely be able to defeat someone from the rank of conquerors. However, all these thoughts were in the background, because he already incredibly wanted to eat. During his 5-day training, he never ate anything. His stomach began to strongly resent this. Wu jumped outside, where Sung Dong and Xiao Man were already standing. Wu really hoped that they brought him at least something to eat. Sung Dong told Wu that he became too obsessed with training, so much so that he even pissed his pants. Xiao Man immediately blushed and covered her eyes with her hands. She could not believe that this really could happen to the master. Yang Wu hit Sung Dong on the head and said it was just sweat from training and he didn't wet himself. But at that very moment, a terrible sound was heard. Sung Dong and Wu immediately tensed. They understood that this was not good. Wu started telling the guys that he thinks something bad is going on in the 68th Ward. At this time, people in the 8th Division ran in different directions. They were all very afraid of wolves. Wolves killed people without any regrets. At this rate, people could lose. One old man stood behind the shelter and looked at the wolves. He was very afraid and did not understand where all the prison guards had disappeared at such a time. At this time, the overseers also stood behind the shelter and looked at these merciless demon wolves. The warden was incredibly scared. They also noticed that the wolves are very strong and kill everyone in a row, so it makes no sense to stick out. But suddenly, they noticed how a man runs away from a wolf and asks for help. But at the most inopportune moment, he hits a stone and starts to fall. When he fell, he immediately rallied and began to scream for help. But the prisoners and the guard did not come out of their hiding places. The demon wolf was already very close to him, and in a second would bite him. But it was at this time that Wu arrived in time, did not kick the wolf, thereby saving the man. From such a blow, the wolf flew a long distance and hit a stone. This blow immobilized the wolf, and he crashed into a stone with all his might. Wu began to shout that now the man has nothing to fear, and now he will help him. Sung Dong also arrived in time, shouting that together they could deal with them. The main thing was to stick together. The prisoners who were hiding in the shelters began to come out. They shouted that help had finally arrived. Yang Wu and Sung Dong would help them deal with the wolves. Wu took the stone and shouted that there were only 3 wolves left. If everyone took the stones, they could throw the remaining wolves. People did just that. They started throwing stones at the demon wolves. With the help of stones, they managed to cope with 2 wolves. These demons could not react well to flying objects. However, among the wolves, there was another red one, and this wolf ran forward and dodged all the stones. Sung Dong noticed this and said that he could not cope with the red wolf with stones. Wu began to say that the gray wolves are at the level of the warriors. Well, the red one seems to be the level of the conqueror. Wu understood that he should not waste time. He shouted for everyone to retreat. He himself would take the fight with the red wolf. Sung Dong did not want to retreat and leave his brother in trouble. He grabbed a shovel and shouted that he would help. The overseer watched all this. He grinned that the arrogant boy would just die now. No one could cope with the red wolf. Wu knew that one should not underestimate the enemy. He definitely needs to put all his strength into one blow. So he began to accumulate Kai energy. Wu jumped forward using the 3rd assault strike. Quick, decisive strike. However, the red wolf easily dodged this blow, and Wu lost control of the fight. Due to his mistake, the wolf was able to deliver his attack, seriously injuring Wu's back.
Of course, he was able to get up, but he already realized that the red wolf is really a serious opponent. By this time, 2 gray wolves arrived. Sung Dong noticed them and realized that he should not let the wolves near Wu. Sung Dong started yelling to prevent the wolves from hurting his brother and made the decision to jump into the fight. Sung Dong was unable to oppose them, so the wolves easily bit him. Wu also felt that his partner was losing, and now he had a difficult choice. Sung Dong tried his best to hold back the wolves, but his strength was not enough to completely stop them. Wu turned to him, and when he saw what was happening to him, he immediately panicked. Wu was too angry that his best friend was bitten, so he rushed into battle without hesitation. He immediately threw the first wolf away so that he would not interfere in the battle. Wu attacked the second wolf with a shovel. These wolves are much weaker than red, so they could not even dodge. After that, Wu dealt the final blow with which he dealt with the wolf, and immediately began to run to his friend. Wu immediately grabbed Sung Dong and started checking his pulse and asking him how he was feeling. Sung Dong coughed, but still managed to say that he did not need to worry and he was fine. "You need to be careful with the red wolf." Wu held Sung Dong and told him to be patient a little more. Soon he would be able to take him to the medical station. Wu was determined. He decided to use his new technique in the fight against the red wolf. Wu began to collect Kai energy. He used the sea dragon turtle technique and combined it with the art of the ninth secret. The red wolf did not wait long and attacked, but Wu was also ready and flew straight towards him. Wu yelled with all his might that today would definitely deal with him. After that, he delivered a crushing blow directly to the wolf's jaw. Such a strong attack caused a pulsation throughout the wolf's body. After that, the wolf fell and could no longer move. He had severe damage to his jaw, and Wu looked at him with the look of a winner. He said that since he is a conqueror level, defeating him was not that difficult, and this wolf is nothing compared to Wu. The prisoners who saw this began to rejoice. They shouted that they were now saved thanks to Mr. Yang Wu. Sun Dong also smiled. He was amazed that Wu single-handedly dealt with the three wolves. He is really a strong warrior. After that, the warden came out. He announced that, as planned, everything was already settled with the wolves. He walked up to the wolf and hit the immobilized demon wolf and started asking why they came here. The wolf did not tolerate this and his eyes changed to aggressive. He immediately bit the warden, from which the warden himself began to yell in pain. He tried to throw the wolf off his feet, but nothing worked. He could not believe that this wolf was still alive. One of the prisoners said that the warden was nowhere to be seen when the wolves showed up. They are all alive only because Yang Wu saved them. The second prisoner also did not help the warden because he got out only at the end and tried to take all the merits of Wu for himself. But at the same time, an arrow crouched in the head of the wolf, and this time the wolf finally died. The warden understood that he had screwed up a lot. He asked who fired this arrow so accurately at the target. Then he turned around and realized that it was Wan Langson. Then he confusedly said that she really has excellent shooting skills. This girl, this is the head of the 8th division of the prison. Her name is Wan Langsing. She said that there is no need to suck up to her. She just killed this wolf because she hunts them in this territory. She asked the warden which of the prisoners was able to defeat the wolf. He must be urgently brought here. The warden pointed to Wu and yelled at him to come closer immediately. Wu did not utter a word. He meekly went straight to the head of the 8th division. The guards started yelling that you should kneel in front of the head of the department, after which he hit Wu in the legs. However, from this blow, only he himself hurt more. Wu did not even budge. The warden could not believe that this boy had such strong bones. That's when he got angry and said that they were kicking him to death. Wan Langsing shouted that it was very low, so she took out her whip and threatened. The head of the prison hit the warden because he mistreats the hero who saves from the wolves. The warden fell to the ground and began to cry. He decided that the boss hit the wrong person, but Boss Wan slapped him again to tell no one else. Then she asked Wu to raise his head. Wan Langsing said that this guy's appearance seems familiar to her. He just needs to raise his head. However, Wu replied that he was better with his head down. His face was dirty, and high-ranking people should not look at such. But Wan did not give up. She was wondering who this person was, so she herself raised his head. Wu burst into tears and said that he didn't expect to meet Lanson Ni-chan in a place like this. Wan Langsing herself was shocked. She could not believe that Wu was standing in front of her. He quickly turned away and said that now he is an ordinary prisoner. If she is already the head of the prison department, then she has nothing to talk about with him.
However, Wan Langsing took his hand and said that they had grown up together since childhood, and although they are not relatives, they are like brother and sister, and how can she now not pay him off? Then Wu said, since she remembers their friendship, maybe she can somehow make this person not cause more problems for them. The warden understood what they were talking about him now. He began to shout that he had no plans to cause trouble for Yang Wu, and this was the higher people ordered him to do. Wan Langsing started yelling at him to stop touching Wu again and approach him. The beaten guard, already crying from pain, said that he understood everything. He would no longer pester him. Sum Dong was glad that even the warden got it in full, and now he will definitely calm down and will not get them. Wan Langsing was upset that Wu went to jail, but she didn't expect to see Wu here. But she had too little time, because the wolves were not finished yet. She could not stay here. She said that Wu should wait a little longer until they see each other again. Wu followed her with his eyes, and she shouted that Wu would definitely wait for her. Wu himself was a little surprised because they hadn't seen each other for a long time. But Langsing's sister still remembers him. Sum Dong was pleasantly surprised that Wu knew Wan Langsing. She was the daughter of the chief commander Wan Tianlong. This girl was practically the deity of the entire mountain prison. But Wu only smiled and said that he always thought she was nothing more than a neighbor's daughter. Sung Dong shrugged his shoulders and said that he was lucky both in battle and with girls. There was nothing to be done. At this time, in the 8th section of the mountain prison, there was a real battlefield. Many wolves were damaged. However, among the people, there were also significant losses. Many people could not cope. The chief was not very pleased with such a victory. The prison suffered huge losses. Thousands of people died. By this time, Wan Langsing had already run to her father. She was very upset and offended by him. We couldn't believe he didn't tell me what happened to Uncle Yang Zhenan and all his family. But Tianlun told her that she apparently met the son of the Yang family. And if he told her, nothing would have changed. The Yang family had already lost everything. After that, he said that it was better for her not to approach him. Let him deal with his own problems. It would be better for her. Wan Langsing grew up with him from childhood. She simply does not believe that Wu could commit a crime. If her father does not want to tell, then she herself will figure it out. After that, she left, and her father only sighed. He did not want her to communicate with him. All this time, the wolves were retreating. The rest of the army of the wolves was running up the mountain. The leader also ran away and thought that he underestimated the human race. He lost many wolf brothers. There were no more than 400. After that, he turned to a group of people who were just waiting to attack the wolves. There were smirks on their faces. They were ready to deal with the wolves at any second. This greatly infuriated the leader of the wolves. He shouted that he must return to the king of the rolls and ask for more soldiers. Then Tianlun and his prison would be over. After everything was over, Wu returned to the house. Xiao Man examined Wu. He had serious wounds, but this did not bother him much. He understood that they would not heal soon. Wu began to meditate. He used the 9th secret, thereby creating a fire within himself, which began to regenerate his body. Xiao Man noticed that early on his body began to heal. They seemed to just evaporate. It struck her very much. She could not find words. She began to scream in surprise that his wound was healing right on the go. When Wu fully recovered, he began to laugh and shout that he was now immortal. No one on earth could harm him anymore. At this moment, Wan Langsing shouted to him that his face had not changed at all since childhood. Wu and Xiao Man did not expect to see her near the house. Wan Langsing stood with her cheetah and smiled sweetly. She had long wanted to talk with an old acquaintance. Xiao Man was amazed at the beauty of this girl. She began to envy her, and Wu just smiled. For him, she was just a neighbor. Xiao Man was very jealous. She even blushed at such beauty. When Wan Langsing went inside, Wu told her that people of her status shouldn't go to places like this. But she grabbed Wu's hand and started yelling at him that she didn't care about status. She wanted to help him get out of here. Wu could not even look into her eyes. He understood that he was a criminal, and if she helped him escape, she would also turn out to be accomplices. When suddenly, Lanson noticed something strange. Something very incomprehensible was standing right outside the door of the house. She looked out of the window and saw the guards who wanted to listen to the conversation. She began to shout that this mountain prison belongs to her father. If someone eavesdrops on death, she will talk to him. While she was yelling at the guards, Wu listened to all this and remembered that she had behaved the same way before. Wu became completely embarrassed. He did not want them to meet in such an environment. But there was nothing to be done. Then Wu turned to Xiao Man and told her to take care of Sung Dong until he returned. Xiao Man understood everything and asked the master to return as soon as possible. After that, Wan Langsing and Wu set off on a cheetah. While they were driving, Wu turned to his sister with a smile and said that he was very glad that he could meet her. Now you can die in peace. These words touched her very much. She smiled awkwardly and turned, asked him to save those sweet words for someone else. So they went up the mountain. In the mountains, as usual, there was a strong wind. They had to hold on tightly to the cheetah. Wan Langsing asked Wu what happened to their family. Uncle Yang had an honorary title. You can't lose it just like that. Wu replied that it was all because of Tang Yanjiao. She began to remember who it was, and was finally able to remember the princess from Fuan Palace. Wu revealed that Tang Yanjiao wanted him to join as a family through marrying a princess, but once she was refused, she slipped something on him and made everyone think that Wu was trying to rape her. Then her parents hated the Yang family, which is why the soldiers did not collect all the property of the Yang family. It was hard for Wu to talk about it, but he went on and said that they were only able to survive thanks to their older brother, who gave up his high position, begging for the life of the Yang family. Wan Langxing became very angry and said that this princess deserved to die, but Wu replied that she was from the royal family, so there should have been retribution for refusing. Well, anyway, she should not have destroyed my entire family. And now he despises. Even the warden was ordered to make him helpless. Wan Langxing confidently said, just let her try. She understood that she could not help him with everything, but about the prison and everything connected with it, she would definitely be able to help. Wu, who tried to dissuade her, Fuang Palace is closely related to the main royal family. I'm sorry, it's worth it to get involved, take off. But Langxing told him that once, when they were children, they were far away in the mountains. They were then attacked by a demon wolf. It was very scary, and only Wu dared to fight back, while Wan Langxing herself could not move from fear. After that battle, Wu carried her near the snowy mountain for a long time to return home. Wu then got very sick because he got frostbite. Trying to save her, he almost died because of Wan Langxing. She smiled sweetly and said that from that time, she promised herself that she would take care of him all her life. Wu turned to her, was very touched. He did not expect such devotion from her. After that, she hugged him and wanted everything to go well in his life. The next day, inside the bloody mine, there was a battle. Demons moved into people and attacked other people. Even the head of the prison arrived at the battle site. They all had to fight the demon in order to calm him down. Well, even the head of the prison was confused. This demon was really strong. He listened to the horror in everyone who came across his way. One of the warriors decided that he himself would cope with this bloody altar, so he decided to attack first. He jumped into the fight without thinking, in the hope that he could defeat him alone. There was determination in his eyes. But in just a second, his gaze changed to fear. The demon's hand grabbed him, and he no longer had the opportunity to attack. And in the next second, he was crushed by demonic force. There was simply nothing left of him. The warriors began to panic. They began to shout that it was time for them to retreat. Otherwise, they would also say goodbye to life. It was a shock for them that even the assistant chief Zhao could not oppose the demon. Tianlun saw the fear of his subordinates and became very angry. He began to yell that he could no longer endure this. He rushed into battle, destroying the hands of the demon. The head of the prison was head and shoulders stronger than all the subordinates. It was not difficult for him to destroy the hands. One of the chief's assistants was very frightened and began to shout that this huge hand belongs to the Lord of Blood, and no one can handle it. Tianlun yelled back at him to return from guarding to the prison until he got out of here. Will be Lai Feng. And most importantly, he asked the boss that Lai Feng take care of his daughter. When Tianlun had already come close to the altar, the demon's hands became much stronger and faster. It was not difficult for them to grab him. The hands completely immobilized the head of the prison. And after that, everyone swallowed him inside the bloody river, according to legend, and no one has returned there yet. The assistant was not very upset by this. On the contrary, he began to laugh. He understood that the head of the prison could not get out of there. Lai Feng chuckled and said that from now on, the entire mountain prison will belong to him alone. At this time, Wan Langxing's chambers suddenly heard screams. Wu woke up in horror. Yesterday, he and his sister Lanson got here, and after drinking too much, and now he does not remember what happened. And if something happened, then what should he do now? Then Wan Langxing came into his bedroom. Then Wu started yelling and blushed a lot from this. Lanson was crying at that time. She told that something happened to her father, and it's better for Wu to stay here for now and wait for her. She started to leave and said that a huge blood demon mine was dug in the 8th Division. Her father gathered people to go to fight the demon, but no one knows whether he is alive or not, so she will go and check. Wu immediately jumped out of bed and said that he would go with her. But Wan Langxing already jumped on the cheetah and galloped forward. She shouted for him to stay here. Wu tried to stop her. Why did he decide to use the 9th secret of the dragon turtle art? He understood that it was impossible to send her alone to such a dangerous place. After that, he collected enough psi energy to keep up with it. With the help of his strength, he could move in large jumps and develop very high speed. Wu smiled and thought that at the same time, using the 9th dragon turtle secret technique could really increase his speed by several times. That way he was able to catch up with Lanson and was already right over her. After he landed, Wan Langxing was very frightened, but then she realized that it was Wu. He in turn said that he would help her go with her. Lanson was very surprised that he was able to catch up with her cheetah, but said that they would soon arrive at the 8th squad. He would have to follow the instructions. Wu agreed to this. Literally 5 minutes later, they had already arrived, and the guard who stood at the entrance was very surprised. His name is Lai Xiang. He began to shout that the criminal should not be next to the daughter of the head of the prison. Wan Langxing grabbed her spear and said that she needs to get into the bloody mine. It's better not to interfere with him. Lai Xiang began to say that it's not safe in the mines now. She better not appear there. But Lansing moved the spear in his head and said that she didn't ask his opinion and it was better for him to leave. Otherwise it would only get worse. Wu started respectfully telling him to forgive them. If he really likes Lanson, then he should help and free the people from the mine. In Wu's head, he didn't understand where this sissy came from. He tries so hard to put himself in the best light in front of Lanson. But Lai Xiang looked very frightened. He shouted that he didn't interfere with passing. It was just too dangerous in the mines. Assistant Chief Zhao had already died. The chief himself was also not in the best position. After these words, Lanson also jumped over him and said not to interfere. If there is a chance to save her father, then she will definitely use it. Lai Xiang was very angry because she is an ungrateful woman. He tries to protect her, and she always ignores him. A minute later, Wu and Lanson were at the gorge, where there was a descent into the cave of Dima on the blood. Wan Langxing began to use her Kai energy. An umbrella appeared from his hands, with which she began to scan the area. The hands of the demon immediately climbed out of the cave. It was very dangerous, but Wan Langxing did not set foot and jumped right inside. Thus they began to descend inside the cave. The closer they were to the center of the cave, the stronger the arms of the demons were. Wu decided to use the 9th secret. He focused on the Kai energy. He understood that he must at all costs protect Sister Langxing in such a dangerous place. Suddenly, he began to feel a serious danger. He understood that there was something below, and it was something very dangerous. Even the cheetah stopped. He didn't want to keep moving. Even Wan Langxing couldn't figure out why he stopped. The cheetah was very nervous. He bared his teeth and was obviously frightened by something. Wan Langxing got off the cheetah and began to stroke and calm him down. She told him if it's hard for him, then he can wait here too. After that, she stood up and said that her cheetah was afraid. If Wu still wants to go with her, then he needs to make a choice now. Wu of course agreed. Lanson started using her energy umbrella and said that it was time for them to go then. After they went downstairs, the first problems immediately appeared. Demon heads surrounded them on all sides. Lanson started to fight back with an umbrella, and Wu prepared for battle. Lanson was able to resolve the heads of the demons quite easily. The punching techniques were at a high level. Well, one demon head flew towards Wu. Because of his speed, Wu did not have time to react to it. This blow hit him right in the back. It was not fatal, but very painful. Wu fell to the ground in pain and started screaming. He tried his best to get up and help in the fight. Wan Langxing noticed that brother Wu was in trouble. She yelled at him to get help. Lanson launched her umbrella into him and used a technique, unassailable umbrella defense. The umbrella hung directly over Wu's head, thus protecting him from the blows of the demons, at which time he managed to accumulate some Kai energy. By this time, he had a 16th sound, which meant that he was already at the 16th stage of mastery. which means that now he can use the energy of the blood demon to improve his own strength. But while Wu was safe, Wan Lanson fought. She was also attacked by demonic hands. Wu noticed this and could no longer sit still. He rushed into battle. As Lansin could barely cope, he flew at full speed and was able to repel all the demonic arms with one blow. His powers grew at an incredible rate. After he managed to repel the attacks, he grabbed Lansin, along with her, began to move away from the battlefield. After Wu carried Lanxing to a safe place under an umbrella, he asked her to stay here, and he would go look for Uncle Wan. Lansin was badly hurt and told him to stay here. The blood demon's energy is too strong. Wu can't handle it. But Wu did not listen to her. He ran forward and shouted that she should not worry about him and take care of herself until he returns. When Wu went down to the altar, the demon's strong arms reappeared, but they were much more powerful than before. Lansin was very worried about him, so she screamed after him to run as quickly as possible from there. A strong demonic hand grabbed him with ease. Wu had almost no chance to dodge. After that, the hand began to absorb the Kai energy from Wu's body. He desperately resisted, but nothing came out. But at some point, he still managed to escape. Somehow he managed to break the bloody hand. But this was not the end. The second hand was already flying behind him, for which he was not ready. This hand hit him hard. From such a blow, he flew off. Wu could not understand why the hands with each one only become stronger. In a second, he crashed into the wall and fell down exhausted. It was very difficult for Wu to fight them. He thought, this energy is as if someone is controlling. Otherwise, she would not attack for no reason. If he somehow manages to absorb the energy of a bloody demon, then he will have nothing to attack. However, this energy seems to burn out the heart and resolve the bones. If he relaxes for a second, he will immediately die. At this time, Wan Lanxing was crying and screaming that it was all because of her. I didn't set out to take Wu with me. She had to die here alone. While Wu was trying to absorb the energy, he only hoped that Lansin wouldn't come up to him. It would be too dangerous. Lansin cried and said that he had to cope, because if he did not survive, then she definitely would not leave here. At this time, outside the mine, a man tried to get inside, but he was also stopped by Lai Kanying. Jen Sen shouted that he wanted to help Sister Lanxing. If something happens to her, then never forgive yourself for it. So he hit the guard with a pitchfork and ran on. He couldn't just sit back while Lansin was in danger. He shouted that Lai Kanying constantly talks about how he loves Lansin, but in reality he is a pathetic coward, and Lansin will never look at someone like him. But then the assistant to the head of the prison appeared. He jumped on him with a sword and shouted that he had to obey orders. Jen Sen managed to repel the attack, but the assistant chief was still much stronger. Jen Sen yelled that Lansin was still in the bloody mine, and he couldn't sit idly by. After that, the assistant chief turned around and said he can enter there alone, but he is not allowed to take anyone with him to certain death. Jen Sen was ready for this. He angrily said that he would still go there alone. He did not need help. After that, he ran to the gorge and jumped down. He understood that it was very dangerous, but he could not afford to sit on the surface. Lai Kanying was shocked. He asked his father why he allowed it to be done. This is a complete violation of the rules. Father began to talk about how he is too eager to go there, but they can't just delay him. This place must be well guarded. The eagle with a report on the situation has already been sent to the imperial court. Reinforcements should arrive soon. At this time in the mine, Wu continued to draw the energy of the bloody demons. Wan Lanxing stood behind and did not know what to do. But suddenly she heard her name. She began to panic, but still looked who it was. She did not think that Uncle Jan would come here, and he began to say that it was too dangerous here. She needed to leave. He himself could look for the head of the prison, but Wan Lanxing blocked his path and said that there was no need to go there. Yang Wu was already there. Kan stopped not understanding. He did not know who Wu was and what she represented herself. But then he saw Wu and was just shocked. He did not understand what was wrong with his body, why his body was resistant to demon energy. But it was at this moment that a new hand appeared from the bloody century. It was more powerful than the previous ones. clearly more dangerous. But this time, Wu was in a serious mood. He was ready to attack. He believed in his victory and was waiting for the right moment. When the hand was very close, he used his water dragon turtle technique, as well as the ninth secret, due to which his body was covered with an abundant layer of energy. In this form, he decided to repel the attack of the demon's hand. But even this was not enough. Yu looked to restrain it for a while, but his energy was not enough. After this attack, he sat on the ground and tried to hold his breath and contain the Kai energy in his body. Wan Langxing was very worried about him. She saw how he was suffering, but she could not help. Wu again began to meditate and collect energies within himself. He held the energy of the demon and tried to accumulate I inside his body. Processing demonic energy allows him to advance to the top of the warrior level. The core inside him is gradually filled with energy. Jen saw that this kid was just the levels of a warrior. He couldn't believe that this boy was still alive. Wu was not even going to retreat. He got up and began to run straight to the altar, while he shouted that he was invincible. Then don't think about anything, he returned to the river of blood that was around the altar. When he landed, he was a little confused. He dived into the river, and there was still a lot of free space. In front of me, I saw a demon who was chained, as well as the head of the prison, which is why you couldn't move. Wu could not stay in place for long, and began to run to Wan's grandfather to help him get out of here. Although the demon was bound, he could not use his powers at 100%, but no one can dull clear vision. The demon looked at this guy and did not understand where he got such incredibly powerful energy from. The demon asked the boy to release him. Wu was very worried, but he still decided to find out the conditions. The demon looked at him and said that in return to teach him the arcane arts, which would greatly increase his level as a warrior. Wu started talking about how he can't help. He barely has the strength to stand on his feet. But at that very moment, all the pressure began to go away. Strength reappeared, and the pain disappeared. The demon began to tell that in this place, he decides who will live and who will die, and Wu is now allowed to live. But nothing will help this man next to him. Wu understood that without Wan Tianlong, the whole prison would fall apart. The lives of everyone who was here depended on him. So Wu decided to ask how he could free the demon. Then he replied with a smile that he just needed to break the bloody chains, and then he would be free. Wu understood that if this person is chained here, then this is definitely not just like that. Wu said that he would be released if he fulfilled his 3 conditions. Diamond began to get nervous. He was overwhelmed with energy and anger, and he could not believe that some boy was going to tell him. From such a force, Wu was immediately pressed to the floor. The pressure reappeared, and he could not move normally. Wu said that his life is now completely in the hands of the demon. If he does not set conditions, then there will be no guarantee that he will remain alive after being released. And the second point is that Wu is still alive, but he will not appear in the world yet people ready to free him. After these words, the demon finally released himself. He released part of his energy, thereby creating unbearable pressure. Wu imprinted on the ground, and he could not move. The demon's eyes were already shaking. He could not imagine that he would have to chat with some kid of the lowest level of the war, all because of the emperor. Thanks to him, the demon sat there for 200 years. Well, as soon as he manages to get out, then the end of the emperor. With the last of his strength, Wu began to use the 9th secret and the dragon turtle technique. His body was at the limit, and he definitely won't have a second chance. The old man looked at him and did not understand why he was still resisting and where he got such strange powers from. Then he wondered, this guy uses an unusual martial art. His body is able to absorb the energy of the blood demon. Is he somehow connected with the blood demon? Wu was able to absorb enough energy. He was even able to stand up and said that he was very grateful for his help in overcoming the edge of mastery. Now he can definitely become a conqueror. The old man began to yell that he was only at the lowest levels. It was no more difficult to destroy him than an animal, so let him name his conditions. Wu began to say after being released, do not kill Wu. The second condition is to provide protection for a while, and the third condition is to release the warden. The old man said that he accepted the first and third conditions, but he did not agree with the second. Wu could not understand what was wrong with the second condition. The old man showed his energy and said that he is an ordinary boy. He is not worthy of protection. Wu turned away from him and said that then they would die together here. He was just a prisoner, his death meant nothing. The old man suggested that he show a couple of secret techniques, as well as fulfill the first third condition. Wu smiled and said that it suits him. First, you need to free the boss, otherwise he will die, and the plan will completely fall apart. The old man, without hesitation, grabbed one of the hands of the head of the prison and began to carry him out of the altar. On the surface, Langsing and Jan were shocked to see Chief Fainlin, and more than that, they didn't understand why the demon's hand was doing this. Wu shouted at them from below to take Uncle Wan away from here and leave themselves. No one should come near here. Jan immediately caught Fainlin, and Lanson also ran to visit her father. He was in serious condition. Lanson yelled at Kan to have his father go to the medical center. Kan did not understand why Lanson would not go with her. She said with a serious face that she would wait for Wu right there and help him in any way she could. Kan even cried a little. It was very touching of her. He realized that that kid really meant something to her. However, he grabbed her and began to walk with her because he did not agree to lose her. She is too important for her father and prison. Kan ran away and shouted to the guy to stay alive. Otherwise, Sister Lanson would be very upset, and besides, they would have to organize a funeral. Wu was only glad that they all left safely. For him, it was the best decision. After that, he could ask the old man with a calm soul how he could destroy these chains. After a while, Jen, along with Lanson, managed to get to the surface there. The guards were shocked, but most of all, the assistant chief was shocked. He could not imagine that Fainlin would survive. At this moment, the blood pit began to expand. The thematic energy did not come out. The sinister monsters began to recover. The guards began to retreat. The only thing left was to wait for reinforcements from the palace. Wu at this time ran and destroyed the wedges that held up the chains binding the old man. He ran up to each of them and broke. Thereby more and more energy came to the old man, and he became stronger and stronger each time. All this time, Wu was seriously injured. Every clinic exploded. But the worst thing is that all this time he was controlled by a demonic force that controlled him all this time. After another broken wedge, the old man's chains began to crack. Very soon he will be able to free himself. A minute later, the chains finally fell. He finally felt the power that held the chains all these long years. The old man already felt that very soon he would be able to become king again. He was waiting for the moment until all the chains break. But just at that moment, Wu stumbled and started to fall. But it was an unusual fall. The ground collapsed right under him. He began to fall lower and lower, until he finally fell into a strange place. There was a river and grass grew. Everything was strange in this place. Even the water lily in the river had its own energy, and quite strong. This energy passed Wu, from which he was able to regain consciousness. It pierced his mind so hard that he began to sweat. Wu couldn't believe it was Quan's birth energy. But how did it get here? He got up and realized why he had not left the feeling that something was calling him, ever since he went down into the bloody pit. Wu quickly jumped into the river. He understood that this is the first type of energy that is needed in order to fully know the ancient ninth Xuan technique. If he absorbs this, he will improve his knowledge of energy. As soon as he began to meditate and absorb energy, it became more and more. It was filled with calmness and beauty. This gave him an average level of a warrior. Clicks in his body were heard again. His core began to grow. Now, Wu could react to anything within a radius of 2 to 3 meters without even opening his eyes. He could see this old man's system, but suggesting that he was simply telling him to escape was too private on Wu's part. Wu looked at the flower that floated on the river, was incredibly beautiful, and most importantly filled with Xuan energy. Whatever is inside, Xuan's rebirth energy will definitely create something extraordinary. Wu decided to get some water. He could not miss this opportunity. This water is too valuable. But before he could do anything, the demon's powers blocked the ability to use Xuan's energy. He looked up and saw that the old man did it on purpose. He would not let him become stronger so easily. Wu looked up and realized that this is the essence of the creatures of demonic blood. Wu also understood that getting out of here is quite easy. The problem is to avoid what these three are planning. Besides, this place will fall apart soon, and no one can withstand it. He has no choice but to try to negotiate with the old man. Wu shouted to him that he had found the essence of the creature. He could get him out of this trap if the old man did not touch him. The old man will answer that no one will set new conditions for him. Wu understood that this old man is this curse of the bloody pit that provoked a house in the foggy wolf prison. However, the old man said that he would agree to any terms as long as Wu broke the formation right away and helped him escape. Wu suggested that he swear that he would not harm Wu, and if he broke the oath, his ancestors would not be able to be reborn. And also he will have a bunch of acne on his face, and he will die a painful death. The old man began to get very angry, and he decided to agree with everyone just to get out quickly. Wu smiled and said that this old man would keep his word, and the old man yelled at him to break the shackles faster. After that, Wu already became serious. He understood that he did not have time, and he had to hurry up. Wu decided to strike with his sword and destroy the shackles holding the energy inside. After this blow, break the last chains, which only meant that the old man could now do whatever he wanted. The whole cave began to collapse. Wu began to climb up the debris flying right at him. The old man at that time began to laugh maliciously. His name is Wang Juchong. He was incredibly glad that he was finally free. However, over the 200 years spent in chains, his composition was badly worn out. Something crunched in his back, and he could not move normally. Ju Chong fell to the ground. His body became very weak. He even began to worry about not being able to get out on his own. When Wu went up to his floor, the old man also started screaming for help. He asked the guy to help them get out. Wu did not understand why he needed help. He is very strong. It was all very strange for him. But Ju Chong yelled at him to shut up and help. Otherwise he would die from demonic power. Qi Xiang and Langsing stood at the entrance to the bloody pit, and Qi Xiang said that the place had completely collapsed. A ferocious demon was roaming the pit. Her godbrother might already be dead. This greatly pissed off Lansing, and she introduced the kopecks to his head with the words that she would kill him if he dared to say even a word. The guy began to get nervous and said that it was all true. He just wanted to tell her the truth, and did not expect such a reaction to the truth. Lanson looked down on him and said that he was not worthy to decide whether a person is dead or not. Then Qi Xiang convulsively agreed with her, although he thought in his head that he knew the truth about her godbrother. And this scoundrel insulted one of the nobles, and therefore ended up in prison. But at the same time, Wu jumped out of the hole with the old man on his shoulders. This was both good news and bad news. But Lanson saw only good things in this. She was incredibly glad that her younger brother Wu was still alive. Wu jumped out and said with relief that he still managed to stay alive after such an adventure. Qi Xiang immediately ordered the guards to capture criminal Yang Wu before he escaped without putting on more cases. Ju Chong is at a loss as to why he does not treat the man who saved the warden so badly. Wu himself did not know why this was happening. Langsing started yelling at him, "What is he even doing here?" To which Qi Xiang replied that he should ask her, because Yang Wu should now call 6-8, but she was the one who brought him to the zone at 8. Harboring criminals is quite heavy misdemeanor. After that, Qi Xiang once again ordered the guards to capture him, and I don't understand why they haven't done so yet. At that moment, Wan Langsing stood up for him and stood in front of him. She said that no one dared even touch him with a finger. Qi Xiang did not understand why she continued to argue, but Langsing shouted that she would take responsibility, and he better not stick his nose in other people's business. Qi Xiang, I have retreated from his. Hiding a criminal is too serious a crime. Even her father cannot save her from this. At that moment, Wu himself intervened in the conversation. He told them both to be silent. He bowed to Lanson and said that since he had completed her mission to save the area's head, he had fulfilled the order, and now he had to send her back to Area 68. Lanson was very upset. She understood that her brother Wu was trying to drop the charges and remove all the troubles from her. She could not stand it and ran up to him, began to talk about saving her father. She was sure that everyone would be grateful for this. He just needs to wait a few days until his father regains his strength. Wu understood everything and began to leave. He waved his hand to Kai Exile and said with a smile that they had not seen each other for a long time. He needs to take care of Langsing. Chi Exile could not bear such impudence. He was just angry at the whole situation. After that, Wu, the old man, and Langsing sent the 68th squad back, and Ki Exile could only see them off. He was incredibly angry. He made a promise to himself that someday he would definitely kill Yang Wu. It's been several hours since they left the 8th Division. We still had a long way to go. Lanson turned to Wu and said that she decided to see him off and stay in Area 68 for a few days. If Wu had gone somewhere else, she would not be able to do anything. But since he was in the prison, she would not let anyone else let him offend. But Wu told her that she was the head of Area 8, and she could not spend all her time in Area 68. Besides, with Wu's new skills, no one could offend him. It was awkward. Well, it's understandable that they didn't want to spend time together, but their current situation does not allow this. So they went even further. Their road was long. I did not have time to talk a little more. After a few hours, Wu stopped the cheetahs and helped the old man get off. He said that they had arrived, and Lansing's sister should go back. Lanson didn't want to leave now. She didn't have much choice. In the end, she only said that Wu would inform her if we were not mocked. While they were talking, the old man climbed the mountain, decided to look around the area and understand what had changed during his absence. Lanson immediately noticed this and decided to take advantage of the moment. She approached Wu and asked him why he left the blood pit with this man. Wu understood that it was better for him not to spread the identity of this old man. It would be better for everyone if no one knew who he was. So he came up with a legend that thanks to the way to the surface, he assumed that this was one of the captives who fell. But even in this he did not sure because the old man never said anything. Lanson believed in this story once again, asked him to remember the words that she told him. After that, she began to walk back to the 8th Division. Wu waved his hand and said goodbye. Ju Chong was shocked that Wu said that he couldn't speak, but Wu smiled. He suggested that it doesn't mean anyone better. What really happened in the bloody pit? When they approached the 68th Division, they noticed that there was some kind of fight ahead. Wu immediately realized that something was wrong. He immediately became aggressive and angry. He immediately saw what happened. Song Dong and Man Chou were in front. People severely beat Song Dong. They considered him a weakling who is not worthy of being a restrained leader. Xiao Man shouted not to beat him. Otherwise, when the master returns, they will not get away with it. They were members of the Black Gorilla Gang. His name was Li Fu. He began to say that no one cares about her master. In this mountain prison, there is not a single person who did not bow to him. It was at this moment that Wu approached. He called Li Fu a weakling. It hurt him a lot, and he immediately became furious. Xiao Man began to cry with joy. She was incredibly happy that her master had returned. Li Fu walked closer to Wu and said that he didn't hear what he had just been called. Wu called her a weakling again and said that he would kneel before him, just before his death. Li Fu began to laugh even harder. He did not understand how this guy got such self-confidence. After that, Li Fu attacked Wu and shouted that they would look at what he had to say after he was left without teeth. A moment later, their fists converged. This caused a strong shockwave, but only Li Fu began to feel pain. From such a blow, he flew off and pierced another member of the gang with his body, and then it became clear who was really strong. Xiao Man was glad that her master was still as strong and would be able to protect them at any moment. After that, De Fu, along with his company, found to leave. Wu told him in the end that he himself would soon come to Area 7 and deal with the leader. That same evening, Yang Wu returned to his home. Now for him, the main task was to help Sung Dan. They put him on a kind of bed, and Wu gave him a jar of medicine to help him recover as quickly as possible. Sun Dong felt better almost immediately and asked Wu what this strange water was, and why it didn't taste so strange. Wu replied with a smile, "This is spiritual water from an underground spring. It speeds up the healing of wounds, so he will recover soon." After that, the old man entered the house and asked why there were so many different people here. Wu began to explain that one of them is his brother and the girl is a maid. They are all very dear to them. Well, the old man was against it. He ordered to kick them out and make sure that they would not interfere with him. Xiao Man and Song Dong realized that something was wrong here. They quickly found getting up and trying to get out. Wu was serious and said that the only person who interferes with someone is only an old man. Wu began to say that if someone needs to be kicked out, it will only be him, and he is superfluous here. After these words, the old man began to get angry. He said that apparently the guy was going to die right here. Wu began to shout that he understands the old man's strength like no one else. But now, he asks him to show nobility. The old man began to say that when his strength was restored, Wu would be the first to be destroyed. Wu sat on the bed and said that the vows for this old man are just empty words. So if he really wants to get rid of Wu, you can do it whenever you want. But do not touch the maid and brother. After that, he turned to the old man and told him to leave the house because he wanted to do training. The old man did not even know how to answer this. Wu sat down to meditate. When he meditates, he does not pay attention to extraneous noises. But right at that moment, as his pocket was approached by a dog, it was unexpected, and she grabbed a bottle of water. Wu could not ignore it. He immediately stopped meditating nervously. He shouted that this was a special spiritual water from an underground source, and he needed it to restore his own strength. But by this time, Xiao Hai had already drunk all the water from the bottle. He drank every last drop without a second thought. Wu started yelling at him that this is a useless dog. I would at least bet saving. At this time, help had already flown up to the bloody gorge. The warrior emperors were already ready to attack the demon. Meng He, commander of the 3rd Flying Eagle Squadron, he noticed that there are no living creatures around. This is really a suitable place for a prison. A minute later, the Orlov Squadron began to descend. Below, they were already greeted by the assistant head of the prison. When Meng He finally landed, he immediately went to the assistant chief to find out the current situation at the moment. Hang Meng began to say that there was no need for such ceremonies. The emperor received a request for help and sent them for the eagles to deal with the demonic pit and the demon wolves that appeared. And then Hang Meng asked to be taken to the demonic pit. The assistant felt a little embarrassed. He told Commander Meng that the matter with the pit was resolved. The head of the Thinlong prison dealt with it, although he was seriously injured. Meng He also did not understand anything. They reported that the head of the prison and deputy head Zhao had disappeared. The bloody pit may contain a royal secret. Now they declare that the demonic one has been destroyed. Don't they want to make a fool of the commander? Qi Xiying intervened and said that when the pit was destroyed, some of the prisoners managed to survive and escaped, so they may not know the royal secret. Meng He started yelling about finding them as soon as possible and bringing them here. At this time, at Sung Dong's house, the old man and Wu were 3 of us meditating, and everyone needed training and practice. While Xiao Man was playing with the dog, she noticed a large crowd of people ahead, and everyone was moving in their direction, which was rather strange. The warden of the 68th Division immediately gave Yang Wu's exact location and showed them where to go. Qi Xiying pointed at the house and said, "Why the criminal lives alone in such a huge house? You need to get rid of the house as soon as possible." Xiao Man came out of defense and blocked the way for the guards. She said that the young master should not be disturbed while he was busy with business. Well, the guard did not spare anyone. He lashed Xiao Man and told her that such a squeak would not be able to stop them. At this moment, Xiao Hai became furious. His face became angry for the first time, and there was fire in his eyes. Xiao Hai pounced on the guard and scratched his face. It was very unexpected and strange, so he did not have time to react. Qi Xiying took out his sword and wanted to deal with the dog as quickly as possible so that it would not interfere with moving on. After that, with one blow, he fired the dog to the ground, thereby completely disarming it. Xiao Man also jumped up and rushed to the dog. She was very upset that even the dog was not spared. Qi Xiang started yelling about killing anyone who gets in their way and capturing Yang Wu as quickly as possible. After that, Wu went outside and did not understand what was happening here. But he saw how bad the dog and Xiao Man were, so he was incredibly angry. Qi Xiang started yelling that Wu deserved to die for attacking the head of this sector, so keep him as quickly as possible to capture. At that moment, Xiao Man intervened and said if they want to get it, they will have to go through me first. Qi Xiang began to laugh viciously. He could not even think that even prisoners have people. If they decide something wrong, then the masters of his servants will go the same way with him. After that, Qi Xiang gave the order to capture both of them, as well as to destroy this house and everything in it. But just at that moment, there was a huge roar. Everything started to shake, and a terrible scream told them that they had found their death. From such a strong shaking, and even Qi Xiang's domestic lion could not stand it and began to shake in fear. Qi Xiang himself fell off his feet. For a second, everything became quiet. Only the terrifying cry of the royal champion resounded throughout the valley. From such a cry, even Qi Xiang trembled all over. After that, Wu, as if nothing had happened, took the dog in his arms and began to examine it for damage. The dog was furious and wanted to gnaw on all strangers, but Wu said that they still had time to take revenge on them. This is the first time that Xiao Hai was so angry. Wu could barely restrain him so that he would not break free and go into battle. After the guards retreated, Wu went back to the house with Xiao Man. Wu approached the old man and told him that now send help to him. It might be dangerous here. But the old man replied that he was not afraid of anything, and anyone who gets close to him knows what death is. Wu started to pack the dog and told the old man if he didn't want to leave, then he would stay with him. Wu hoped in his head that the old man would really stay, because the royal champion has an unusual power. Even the imperial court is forced to count if he is correct, take advantage of the situation. The old man will be captured, and he will be released from prison. Wu handed him a bottle of water and said it was spiritual water from an underground lake. It would help him regain his strength. The old man, without hesitation, began to drink it. After a couple of seconds, he drank all the water that was in the bottle. Wu was a little unhappy about this because he planned to leave some for Sister Langsing. After a while, already a whole army was heading to Yang Wu's hideout. There were high-class warriors, so he was brewing a serious battle. Team Admiral Manhwa asked for their exact coordinates. Qi Xiang replied in horror that these criminals were in that house near the mountain. The assistant to the head of the prison began to yell at her son that even if he could not cope with this, then he would forever remain lazy. A minute later, the army of guards was already standing right in front of the house. They were ready to attack at any second. Qi Xiang, as their commander, gave the order to prepare for shelling and told them to be on the lookout. Wu looked at all this and understood that they would soon have serious problems. But the old man at that time did not even move. A moment later, a hail of arrows flew into this house. If they do nothing, they will definitely get an arrow in the head. But just before hitting the house, the demon's hand appeared out of nowhere and reflected in the arrows in the opposite direction. Now, Qi Xiang had to defend himself. These arrows could cause great damage to the army. The assistant chief ordered everyone to defend himself, and he himself began to shoot down arrows with horror in his eyes. However, archers do not have such strength and skill to easily repel arrows, so some of the archers immediately received serious injuries. Qi Xiang was also not very experienced, so he almost immediately fell to the ground. He could not believe that this was possible. He began to tremble in fear and said that even the royal champions would not be able to stop such a sinister energy. At this time, Manhwa chuckled. Now he saw exactly who he was dealing with. He understood that one should not underestimate the enemy. With a smile on his face, Manhwa went on the attack, but he shouted that now he would show who the royal champions really are. With his own self, he was able to destroy the whole house in which Wu and the others were hiding with one blow. After the destruction of the house, a very strong demonic energy filled the entire battlefield. The old man decided to clarify what the attackers were planning to do. Were they really going to kill him? Once the old man tensed up and began to use his powers, the first thing he did was knock down a giant eagle in the air along with Manhwa. Even he, unable to resist such high pressure, was incredibly pressed against the earth today. It was not difficult to move. Wu looked at all this and thought if he had such power, he could get rid of the Xia dynasty before they dishonored his family. With such power, he would definitely be able to restore the honor of the family. Manhwa, in fear and horror, began to bow to such a magnificent warrior. He said that he was the commander of the 3rd Squadron of Flying Eagles. The only thing he asks is to know the name. The old man began to say that he did not need to know this, because he, along with his warriors, would go for a snack. After this mistake, the whole army knelt down. They did not understand that nothing would shine for them in this battle. Manhwa was very afraid and said that it was a mistake to attack them, offered to forget what was now to let him and his soldiers go back. But the old man began to say that he did not negotiate. Even his king Orlov would not dare to negotiate with him. White-Broad, king of eagles, lived 100 years ago and was the best warrior of the Xia dynasty. He led the previous generation of flying eagles. Even the emperor himself called him a teacher. Manhwa turned to the assistant warden and said that it would be better for their prison if they improved the conditions of this respected man. But the assistant could not afford that. He would not want to cross the line. Well, I understand that there was no other way, and turned to the old man, but he suggested that he move to the courtyard, where he would prepare wine and various dishes. They would get sacred water for him, so that he could restore his strength. The old man immediately relaxed and said that this was a good offer, and he was ready to accept it. Wu could only watch them leave. Then Wu was left on his own. Before leaving, Manhwa paid attention to this boy. He noticed a strong energy in him, after which they set off, after which Wu was left without a home, but at least a hole. Xiao Man approached him and said that this old man was some kind of ungrateful. He didn't even say anything about Wu, although it was Wu who saved his life. But Wu, with a smile on his face, turned to her and said that he did not need a reward. It was probably even better that he himself left here. Sung Dong joined the conversation. He asked Wu what this old man has to do with the royal champions, and Vasila is so tall that it's even difficult to breathe. Wu replied, most likely, he really is that strong. Moreover, in Bai, he can use the power of blood and energy Kui. If the old man recovers, he will definitely become invincible. However, they began to laugh, because he is still an old man. But all the power belongs to the young. The future of the country will be for the young people. Xiao Man watched the elders laugh and began to believe that the master would someday become the strongest. After that, they decided to quickly build a new house so that they could spend their nights comfortably. After building a house, Wu began his training as usual. He definitely couldn't relax. However, when he tried to accumulate Kai energy, this time it became more difficult for him to do it. But he decided to work out a new technique. He sent an energy ball straight at the wall with all his strength. With this blow, he shredded the wall to shreds. This is a very energy-consuming technique that belongs to his family. It is called the Thunder Strike technique, and he also combined it with the Water Dragon Turtle technique, which is why this new skill is so devastating. Suddenly, Commander Manhwa appeared on the threshold. He said that his brother managed to escape, and he also believes that his family will return to its former greatness again. Wu turned to him and said that he did not even suspect that the commander would greet him with his presence. If he wants to pass, he can do it, and not be shy. Manhwa suggested that Wu still blames the commander for not doing anything when the Yang family met their misfortune. Wu Dai awkwardly turned away and said he wouldn't dare to do that. Well, the commander began to say that his father and he were always true to each other. Their brotherly bonds for the commander, and also the prices as before, just the same. The father insisted that Manhwa not interfere in their showdown, and the reason for which he did not come is that he needed to take care of Yang Wen. If he is protected, then the Yang family will have a future. Wu was greatly moved by his words. He had not heard anything about the family for a long time. So he bowed to the commander and thanked him for protecting his brother. The commander patted him on the shoulder and said that he would do anything to take care of his brother. His brother is the best he has ever met. Well, he also wonders what happened today. Then Wu exhaled, but he understood that he would have to tell. It was a long story. When he finished the conversation, the commander was surprised that this old man was really sitting in this hole. But Wu said it was true. He took this old man there from the chains, holding back his power to save the warden. The commander started to leave and said that he had to report this, and he would also tell the prison guards to take care of Wu. After that, the commander set off, and Wu began to think about what had happened in general. He could not believe that the commander had come here only to find out about the bloody pit. Most likely, he was interested in something else. The commander in turn did not understand why this Wu was so reckless. Without him, Yang Wen would have lived much better. Mengham understood that he needed to keep Yang Wen at his side. Then he would definitely be able to get the highest position. The next day, everything was as usual. Wu and his friends ripped hematite in the mines. Nothing boded trouble. However, the guards came and said that Wu was now going to Sector 7. Sung Dong immediately panicked. He knew that in the 7th sector he contained bandits and murderers. He definitely would not be good there. The warden ordered him to be silent. He just received an order from above, and he can't help but answer it. Wu intervened until there was a fight. Wu began to say that he understood everything. He would immediately go pack his things and go. As the guards left, Wu was only interested in one question. Whose idea was it? Ling Xing or Mengham? Xiao Man said that she will go with the master. Song Dong also said that she will go with him. The 7th sector belongs to the Black Gorillas. If they go together, it will be safer. But just laughed. He told his friends that he better take care of himself. He already has a plan anyway. A few hours later, Yang Wu was brought to the mountain prison in the 7th sector. Everything was fine here in his native 68th. While the warden was leading Wu to his destination, he decided to take a little look around to see what was going on around him. In the 7th sector, they immediately drew attention to him. The guys began to say that it would be possible to have fun with him. But there was also a guy who said that he most likely got here for a reason. Maybe he is also a serious criminal. The warden had already noticed that local people had their eyes on Wu. He was already looking forward to how Wu would be beaten. People who watched the fight couldn't believe Wu handled all the defenders of the prison too easily. After another fight, Wu gave a thumbs up to the man on the mountain. Wu had long noticed that he was being watched from above. The man from the mountain started asking if this kid really wanted a fight. Wu mockingly turned his finger over, making it clear with all his appearance that he does not consider anyone here to be rivals. The man started yelling at him that their fight would begin as soon as he stepped onto the mountain, and if he didn't succeed, he would have to die. Wu turned around and saw, to his left, there was a huge crowd of people who were clearly opposed to him. Wu started yelling at the man to stop using others to win. It's not fair to his people. But this did not bother the man at all. He ordered his people to attack to defeat as if nothing had happened. A whole crowd of people rushed into battle. Wu understood that they were weak enough, but in quantity they could cause a lot of problems. Wasting no time, Wu began to use his family's secret technique again. He again accumulated a large amount of Kai in his hands. After that, he stood up and began to add the energy of the sea dragon turtle to this force. In this way, he created a huge wave that immediately hit all the attackers. No one could even imagine what this guy was capable of. Wu began to control the water, lifting as many people as possible into the air. For him, it was not a big problem. His strength was clearly greater than that of all of them combined. Wu taunted them and yelled at them to attack all together, so they would have a better chance. However, this new technique did not work for 3 people. These 3 were much stronger. They continued to go into battle as if nothing had happened. Because of the fog, Wu spotted them too late. They were already in attack range, and very soon they will already carry their blow.